Please be seated. Court is in session. Evelyn Hale, state your case.
Thank you, Your Honor. I am representing the state of Alabama against the case of Jesse Abraham pushing for first-degree murder.
And now your opening statement, Ms. Hale.
Jesse Abraham poisoned and murdered 10-year-old Matthew Brown. She was found 3 blocks away from the scene on approximately 8:30 p.m. on January 2nd. During this time, Mother Charlotte Brown came home from work to find her son deceased.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. Please be seated. Jebediah Forrester.
Thank you, Your Honor. As sad as it is, jury, someone has died today. And with that, a child has died. But we're here to look at the facts. There was poison in the mac and cheese. Now, what is the motive for a 21-year-old babysitter to end Matthew Brown's life? There is none. So why would a 21-year-old ruin her life over a case with no motive? Go ahead, ruin another life, jury.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Hale, your questions may begin.
Thank you, Judge Hammer. Charlotte Brown, please walk us through what happened.
Well, I left Jesse, the babysitter, with Matthew around 1 p.m. to go to work. I came back around 7:30 and the door was wide open. I saw my baby boy lying on the floor. I'm sorry. I went to see if he was all right, but he didn't wake up. So I called the police and then my husband, and he didn't answer, and I didn't see Jesse anywhere.
Thank you, and I'm sorry for your loss. May I ask where your husband is today?
Who knows? I've tried to contact him, but his secretary said he was in a meeting.
I see. Mrs. Brown is obviously heartbroken by the loss of her son. Her life has been completely turned upside down, and you want to let the woman who did this to her free? No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Forrester, you may begin your cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Miss Brown, how long would you say Miss Abraham's been babysitting for you?
About 6 months.
I see. Now, have you had any reason to question Miss Abraham's behavior?
Other than the fact she's a little too friendly with my husband.
Order! Order in the court!
So you would say Miss Abraham is particular to your family in a way?
I'd say so, at least to my husband.
So why would Jesse Abraham go off and murder the son of someone she allegedly had relations with? It makes no sense. There is no motive, and all the facts point to my client being innocent. Thank you, Your Honor.
Jesse Abraham, please come to the stand.
Miss Abraham, can you tell me the events leading up to the time of Matthew's death?
I got to the Browns' house around 1. Matthew and I watched cartoons for maybe 2 hours, and then we went to the park. When we came home, Matthew asked me for mac and cheese, and I made him a bowl. Next thing I knew, Matthew fell from his chair and turned blue.
I see. And what did you do after Matthew collapsed?
I, ran.
I see. And why did you run away?
I was scared. I didn't want to be next to him. I'd look guilty.
Understandably so. How exactly did you make Matthew's mac and cheese?
It was boxed mac and cheese. I just followed the directions. I got him a spoon, placed the bowl at his table.
Okay, now, did you notice anything off about this mac and cheese?
No, sir. It looked normal. I would have had some myself if I wasn't extremely lactose intolerant.
Lastly, did you poison and kill Matthew Brown?
No, I did not.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Forrester. Ms. Hale, you may ask your questions.
Thank you, Judge Hammer. Miss Abraham, where did you go when you left a dying child?
I ran to the nearest drugstore.
Right, and what did you do at this drugstore exactly?
I called a friend.
I thought so. According to records, you called Mr. Brown. Am I right? Why on God's green earth would you call the father of the child you just murdered? I can only think of one reason. You begged him to leave Mrs. Brown, didn't you? You had to eliminate everything in your way of Jack Brown.
Objection! Irrelevant.
Objection overruled.
Jury, I ask you to hear me out when I say this woman will annihilate any variable between her and Jack Brown. Thank you.
Annabelle May, please come to the stand. Miss Annabelle, in what way are you related to Miss Brown?
She's my older sister.
I see. Now, Miss Annabelle, you were at the Brown's house the night before Matthew Brown's death, correct?
Yeah, so it was a New Year's Eve gathering.
And who all was at this New Year's Eve gathering?
My sister, my nephew, and I.
Now let me explain why I think Miss Annabelle murdered Matthew. My client has an alibi that has been unstated at this point. You see, Miss Abraham spent the new year with Mr. Brown. The only other person in the house besides Miss Brown and Matthew was this here Annabella May. Miss Brown, what did your sister bring to this New Year's Eve gathering?
She brought in groceries and a letter from our ma.
And what did that letter say?
Said I was the inheritor of our mother's fortune. She has terminal cancer.
Ladies and gentlemen, when Miss May found out about this, she was instantly put in a disarray. Later that night, I believe that Miss May sabotaged the mac and cheese she bought earlier that day in an attempt to murder the inheritor of her mother's money. One thing led to another, and she is guilty for the murder of her own nephew. Thank you, Your Honor.
It should have been you. I hate you, stale old biscuit. That's why your husband's a cheat.
Oh, bless your heart, Jesse. Give this to my husband.